Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, back to Ne0 Gets to Know, the show where I get to speak to pros from all over the world, every scene, every scenario. And today I'm joined by the wonderful ImpressioN, a man who has been sort of single-handedly trying to save the Asian scene, mate. How are you doing, first of all?
Hey, thanks for having me here. It's a pleasure to be, on your show. I'm doing great actually lately. Things have been picking up for me. Uh,
Okay.
so yeah,
I'm
happy to be here.
Love to hear it. We'll come back to what's been going on well for you, but let's talk to the start, right? Where did it all start for you? How did you get involved into esports, into CSGO? Kind of what's your story into becoming a professional?
Um, so if we go to the very beginning, to my very roots, right?
Okay.
My first game ever was Counter-Strike 1.3.
Okay.
This was when I was 5 years old. Yeah, 21 years ago. All right.
Wow.
There was bunny hopping with the MP5. The Deagle was even scarier than right now.
Right.
It was fun times for me. I was really young. I loved the concept of stepping into a role of another person, like
Sure.
like a counter, like a CT. You have to
Hmm.
defend, and then as a T, you have to attack and stuff like that. And gaming for me was always something that you know was very interesting to me.
For sure.
Um, I'm super lucky. Gaming at the very start was kind of like an escape for me. It turned
Okay.
into a passion,
Hmm.
and then I'm lucky enough to actually have made it my profession. So since a very young age, I thought to myself I wanted to travel the world, see the
Hmm.
sights, meet the people, talk to you like across the globe, like
Yeah,
right
yeah, for
now,
sure.
right? And get to know about like others who love gaming as much as I do. I want to do it professionally, and I actually managed to do it. I, I sacrificed a lot,
Hmm.
dropping out of school and whatnot. Uh, like in Singapore, there's national service,
For sure.
conscription. Yeah, I also went in. I also went in the army early. Just so that I could, have a chance at this.
Hmm.
And yeah, it all panned out pretty well. I would say,
I'd
except
say
for
so
some
too.
like
Yeah.
yeah, some obstacles, some hurdles along the way. But I think that comes with, the career path. Yeah.
Of course. And what sort of draw you to, or drew you, may I say, to sort of CS:GO in whatever iteration over kind of other games that are popular in the region? Of course, you look towards kind of League and Dota being kind of two of the Titan games. Even Overwatch when it was coming through, kind of being the games that took a lot of attention over from Asia. What kind of drew you to and kept you with CS:GO?
Um. Well, the thing is, actually, I first started playing like my first like competitive game when I was like 12 or 13 was
Hmm.
actually a shooter, a tech
Sure.
shooter called Blackshot, right?
Okay.
And so it was like a tech shooter, and it also had like like a they call it a search and destroy mode, which is
Right. Yeah.
basically the
Yeah.
Counter Strike game mode.
For sure.
And that was interesting to me, but I actually moved on and started playing League of Legends
Right. Yeah.
competitively as well, and Battlefield, and eventually like my elder sister, uh, who has been gaming with me since I was a little kid, right? She
Right.
came and like, hey, CS:GO just released. This was like 8, 9 years ago.
Hmm.
Uh, CS:GO just released. I'm playing it. Come join me. And then I played the game, and I told my sister, okay, I'm gonna get Global Elite in 3 months
Okay. Right.
because this game is fun, and I got it in two. So so that was when I
Nice.
was like, okay, yeah, Counter Strike still for me. Yeah, shooters are my thing.
Yeah.
I still have ability to play well,
Hmm.
and from then on, I kind of got into the competitive scene in Singapore locally,
Hmm.
and eventually that I made my way into the top team back then, which was Dreamscape,
Hmm.
which became Boot, and that was kind of where like the semi-pro career just took off, and I was professional. I was
That's
living
it.
like the dream,
That's
right?
it.
And that
Yeah.
was yeah, that was it. And I just kept on, kept on going on.
Hmm.
Uh, and eventually it came to a point where I have come to this point in my career,
Hmm.
whereas I feel like I've achieved a lot as a like an Asian Counter Strike player,
For sure.
and also like especially one from Singapore where esports is not so developed yet.
Hmm. And what kind of led you to be an IGL as well? I think it's a role in which a lot of people, it's sort of daunting to some because, you are kind of the linchpin of a lot of success. But for you, why kind of did you fall into the IGL role?
Um, Specifically for in-game leading, I would say that it wasn't something that I did by choice at the
Okay.
very start, at the very least.
Just came natural to
I
you.
was Yeah, I know it was not that easy. I wish it was. I wish it came that way, but I digress. So it was actually kind of like there was no like real super good in-game leader
Right.
in
Okay.
Singapore, and we basically had to like get this like trickle of information from players who were really good in-game leading from like 1.6,
Right. Okay.
and they kind
Sure.
of passed that on to players who were more experienced or who
Mhm.
were willing to like pick up the mantle and then go like, yeah, okay, I'll do it, and then
Mhm.
let's see how far I can go with it. For me, I was one of those guys where I would like to compare in a sense, obviously not the amount of success, okay? Like the career path of my own in Counter-Strike to be similar to like Ne0 or Kerrigan.
Okay. Sure.
Whereas they were really good, really star players.
Mhm.
Like back then, not that they're no good, not good right now. They're still amazing.
Of course.
But they kind of eventually went into this IGL role and then found themselves their identity and as an in-game leader and as a player,
Right.
and
Okay.
eventually managed to find success in the team. So
For
I
sure.
feel like it's similar for me in that way. Uh, like before joining like the best team in Singapore, I was the star player of like the second or the third best team in Singapore. And then when I joined, I gave up my positions.
Mhm.
You know, uh, over a course of like a couple of years, I had to I have to re-innovate myself as a player.
Okay. Sure.
And eventually, it came to a point where I realized like the best route to go for me as someone who's like pretty outspoken, pretty
Mhm.
vocal. I kind of act like the catalyst of team in most
For
teams.
sure.
I try and gel everyone together, put them on the same like try to put them on the same page, on the same
Nice.
direction, the same path.
Mhm.
I realized in-game leading is not a bad thing for me. I may not be the like smartest or the best, but I definitely work the hardest, I think.
Mhm.
Um, and to bring that type of like mindset, that type of mentality to a team, into a team setting is, I think it's something that actually the entirety of Asia lacks at the moment.
Okay.
Uh, s- so yeah, I embraced it eventually. I had at no point of time hated it. Uh, but at the very start, it was not something that I was super fond of. But eventually, I found like when you find yourself, you find your identity.
That's it.
You realize like you can offer so much, uh, in terms of like a captain's role, a leader's role, a support's role. You know exactly what to do, how to do it, how to make your team understand, and it kind of gives you like such a big sense of achievement eventually. Yeah.
That's what we love to hear. Okay, well, so recently we saw you competing with NKT last season in season 41. You finished fourth overall, which is a very respectable kind of finish, especially with kind of the caliber of talent at the top. You're looking at kind of Rare Atom as being that side that seem unstoppable to a degree, and of course, Vision beat them recently. So there's some hot competition. So to finish fourth is huge. But what have you been up to since? I know you sort of mentioned that things you've been looking up recently, but what have you been up to?
So I actually stopped competing with NKT, I think season 42
Hmm.
ESL Challenger League, I think. I didn't play in Perfect World. I stopped competing for them in like since July.
Sure.
Actually the end of June, right?
Hmm.
So after that, when I left NKT, I've kind of been just like trying to find out what I want to do next.
Sure.
Uh, yeah. So I told myself that if I were to continue competing, I wanted to join like a well-respected team
Hmm.
with a good reputation, and also one that has been around for a long time, that has like good good financial backing, for example,
Of
and like
course.
yeah, resources and support. Um, I looked at opportunities in coaching as a player and everything, but I think so far as a player, it's not like in terms of players position or anything to directly do with Counter Strike, it's not been those prospects have not been like super good for me,
Okay.
right? So instead, I took on some side contracts. I focused a lot on like trying to do what uh like lately what I'm trying to focus on is actually helping the community.
Of course.
I'm trying to I wouldn't say, I mean, it is a effort to save and try and revitalize Asian contract.
Hmm.
But what I'm actually trying to do right now is like baby steps. I'm trying to like even get everyone from every sub region, which is so much of an hassle already
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
Asia is so big, right? onto like the same Discord so that people can have good information flow. This is something that I'm working on right now, and I'm also considering a like a career path change into management for esports.
Okay, nice.
Yeah. So there's actually been a lot going on. I'm still kind of feeling everything out for a little bit, which is great for me because I've took a break for 2 months after
Of course, yeah.
trying for many things for over a long period of time.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it gets to you, yeah.
That's fair. Let's talk about the Asian scene, right? I mean, we've had our conversations about it. But you've obviously been very vocal about it on Twitter. But just explain roughly for those at home, kind of the conversation that you were having on Twitter. There's the classic one about having more RMR spots. Going from 1 to 2, even having more 8 teams. Competing in RMR rather than 4. Do you want to kind of run through kind of the conversations you were having and kind of what you want to see in terms of changes to Asian CS:GO and how to take the scene and all of these kind of big conversations?
I think first of all, Valve needs to give a hoot.
Okay.
The biggest thing here is that okay, I don't particularly fault any tournament organizer. When it comes to like so-called their treatment of Asia, I believe that every tournament organizer, at the very least, they do as much work as they can.
Of course.
They could improve in the sense where they can reach out to people like me, who understand the region and know what is lacking, what has been its issues and its problems in terms of the fundamentals, the foundations, and even the infrastructure of like tournaments and servers and whatever. They could do better in this sense. But the thing about the RMR is that I believe that Valve is the one that sets down the amount of slots for each region, even for the RMRs, even the LAN RMRs.
Of course, yeah.
So if this is the case, that means Valve needs to slightly revise this. And it's not even that big of a change. It is 4 more teams at a LAN qualifier to actually go and play in the major itself. But that qualifier in itself will have the same amount of slots into the major. It's not that big of a change. I'm not saying I'm not saying like Asia deserves like 4 slots in the major. That's something we have to earn. That's something that is yet to be seen, right?
Yeah.
But definitely for 8 teams at LAN to duke it out to see who is the best team. I think it's fair. I think it's not a problem. I don't think it's a big deal. Maybe you spend like 24 people 24 people's worth of accommodations and flights.
Of course, yeah.
Not that much when you're hosting a $1 million major. Right? So this is like the biggest issue, I think. Valve needs to relook at this. I'm at the point in my career where I think like, should I apply to try and get into Valve and actually fucking do something myself? And it's an actual thought process of mine. Because I don't know who's talking to them, where they're getting their information from. Tournament organizers can be like, hey, let's do this instead, and then Valve can be like, yeah, no, and we still remain in the same situation.
That's it.
Time and time again, and I think it's something that is extremely tiring for someone that has been playing for a long time, because I know for a fact that top 2 teams of each qualifier, rest of Asia, mainland China, the GCC and the Oceanic area, like the Middle East GCC area, the top 2 teams of each of these qualifier sub-regions can compete against each other in a very exciting, very exciting, very fun to watch, very high level of competition.
Yeah.
This is a fact, right? 100%. If I had the money, I'll put 8 teams on a huge super yacht, like a luxury yacht, like a cruise, a cruise ship. I'll have them, like go at it for like a month, and then those games will be exciting. Those games will be fun to watch. Those games will be great to cast. To do whatever you want on, it will be amazing Counter-Strike, right? Sure. But this is something that I think the world has yet to come to understand. This is something that is very close to my heart. Because I've been watching these teams. I watch their demos. I play against them. I practice against them, and then I know, okay, what teams has quality to compete against the very best, and not just completely like flop out in like a best of 3,
Yeah, of course.
where they lose like 16-1, 16-2. Counter-Strike is not at that level anymore. Everyone, okay, has good aim. It's just whether or not the meta sticks. And
Yes.
even the meta difference between like an Asian and like, for example, a Brazilian team, could mean that upsets could happen. Counter-Strike has developed so much in terms of the science of the game.
Yeah.
That everybody is good,
Yeah,
right?
I agree.
So if everybody is good, everybody deserves a chance,
That's
right?
it.
So like, why can Australis lose in like a best of 1 in the open qualifier?
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Exactly that.
like I mean, come on, okay? Game has changed. It's time that tournament organizers sees that, publishers as well. So yeah, hoping for a bit more for Asia. Yeah.
And even recently as well, right? If you look towards kind of Melbourne, where Wings Up took down OG, right? There's proof that Asian teams can compete with some of the best. And I mean, even if people want to make the argument of kind of it being a fluke, we've seen it happen before on kind of numerous occasions. And it's more of an argument of kind of why does Europe get the allowance of kind of making mistakes. Australia took 4 attempts to get through the RMR, losing to kind of random teams like Los Kogutos, like the chickens from Poland and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
But like it feels like Asia doesn't. I saw a pretty good argument. I'm not sure if you'd agree, but online people were saying that third, fourth in kind of the Asian qualifier, who was kind of Tyloo and Wings Up, who didn't make it through to the next stage, they would be better than 5th to 8th in NA. I don't know if you sort of agree with that statement.
I don't know who 5th or 8th of NA is.
I think there's a couple of pug mixes. There's one called like Squirtle Squad.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that statement is true and accurate. There is no way a pug team can out pug an Asian team. There is no way.
For sure.
We live and die by the pug. Okay? You grew up playing scrims, and you learn like good foundations and everything. We grew up in the pug. Right? I was born on Dust 2, raised on Mirage, right? Lived on the Inferno. I have been there, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Asia has been there. We are formed. We are crafted. We are molded by the pucks. Okay. So if your 5th to 8th best like North American team, bunch of puck mixers, you will not do anything against Tyloo. Or Wings Up. In fact, Wings Up is incredible puckers.
Of course, yeah.
They if you have actually watched the Wings Up demo, there are games where Gas goes absolutely massive.
He's insane.
And goes 50 kills within 30 rounds. I don't know how he does it. Okay, he just does it. And it's because of years and years of pugging. Sometimes when it's time, you carry. That's it.
Yeah, it's always got to happen. So, of course, we've spoken about the RMR spots, but what do you think sort of outside of just increasing the RMR spots, even if it's, 2 people qualifying or 8 people in total still qualifying for one spot, outside of that, what do you think needs to change in terms of the Asian scene to sort of save it?
I think the Asian scene is you kind of have to go baby steps. The first thing that like I personally think will help a lot is connecting Asia as a whole.
Yes.
Which is what I'm trying to do, right? With what I'm doing. Like I mean, the Discord is called Competitive Asian Counter-Strike.
There we go.
It's not like a CSPPA or CSGO to Asia or anything like that. It's a bunch of people who want to play tournaments and want to know about them and want to try and elevate the scene. Okay.
Of course.
So with Competitive Asian Counter-Strike, what I'm trying to do actually is to connect everyone. Make sure that, for example, a Hong Kong league tournament is made known to an Australian team. Okay. Right? Sure. And it's also made available as well to an Australian team if it's feasible, if the latency is not an issue.
Of course.
Right? Yeah. I want someone from Dubai, alright, from the UAE to be watching a Hong Kong tournament, thinking like, yeah, one day I can participate in that. Right? Yeah. A Japanese tournament being watched by Indonesians. I want Asian, like the Asian region, to be connected. Of course. And the moment that it's connected and there's good proper information flow, that is where actual businesses, tournament organizers, for example, can reach out to different countries' sponsors to go like regional, go sub-regional. or even at some point, maybe even go global. That's like very, very far away. But one of the first things that I'm trying to achieve, what I'm trying to do personally, is connecting Asia as a whole, uniting it. No more talks about the GCC, South Asia, Southeast Asia, East
Yeah.
Asia, mainland China,
All of them together.
outer China. Yeah, you put all of them together, you got a real strong player base. You look at the statistics, the numbers for Asia as a whole, rather than Southeast Asia doesn't have many players. No, we're not gonna look at that anymore. We're gonna look at Asia as a whole. Businesses will look at targeting the Asian market, and they'll offer a lot more like numbers and statistics for businesses to actually look at it and think like there's a ROI, right?
Of course.
There's a return of investment. And eventually, because right now the state of Counter-Strike in Asia is like there is a running Hong Kong league that allows participants from Macau, Hong Kong, Taiwan,
Sure.
right? And nobody knows about it. And one day, because nobody knows about it, there's no eyes on it. There's no viewership. No viewership means no sponsorships.
Of course.
No money, and then eventually the league will die down, and everybody will be complaining, why is this not being done anymore?
Of course.
Right?
Yeah.
And by then it's too late, way too late. So that has happened over the course of like the past 4 years or so. COVID hit us really bad as well, with much more restrictions compared to like the Western countries.
Of course.
Yeah, so that completely killed our LAN scene. The online scene doesn't communicate well enough for everybody to know about it, and this is like one big issue that I think that I'm trying to address, trying to solve, trying to fix and everything, and hopefully it will help in the long run.
For sure. I think one of the things I wanted to touch on there was COVID. Of course, I think for us in the Western world, we still kind of have it alright. I know, like for myself, I was able to travel for gigs and stuff, even kind of during COVID, because you were kind of allowed as long as you were vaccinated. But I know, kind of generally speaking, in Asia, it was a lot more stricter. Do you want to kind of talk about, kind of, for those who don't know, how that actually affected the scene?
Also, LANs weren't happening, but that was a global thing. There was a lot of problems with traveling because there was just so many like mandatory quarantine stuff.
Yeah, it's like 2 weeks and stuff, right?
Yeah, that personally affected me a lot because at one point in time, because right now I'm residing in Brunei, even though I'm Singaporean. At one point in time, internet in Brunei was so bad because it was hit by COVID. There was like a huge bandwidth issue,
right? Okay,
because
sure.
of too many users, and I couldn't travel back to Singapore to play tournaments because then I have to go through like. So first of all, flights were super expensive. They were like $2,000.
Wow.
Generally, right now, after like the endemic phase has started, is $200.
Oh, much better, yeah.
Yeah. So it's like 1,000% increase. It's crazy. I'm not gonna fly back. I don't have the money. So there was a huge issue with like traveling and everything. So I couldn't travel back because and the ping was bad. I had to play tournaments on like crazy bad ping. Like I even have like a post on Instagram on it, showing like how my screen looked like. I was like jittering and rubber banding all the way. It was impossible to play. Yeah, so personally I was quite affected by that. But Asia as a whole had the same problems as the rest of the world when COVID hit. So yeah.
Fair enough. And I think another thing is that kind of when people look towards kind of the Asian scene, at the moment, the two nationalities that seem to dominate is people from China and people from Mongolia. How do you think you're going to sort of address that in terms of having kind of, I guess, smaller regions? Like, of course, you say yourself, you're from Singapore, right? One of the sort of smaller regions represented in CSGO. How do you kind of tackle that problem?
I think for that particular problem, you gotta look at the grassroots of things. There's no academy league in Asia,
right?
Which means there's no opportunity, there's no incentive, there's no career path for any Counter-Strike player to go pro. Unless you're from like a country or region that has already very good fundamentals. A lot of people have eyes on the sport, which is Counter-Strike, which is happening in Mongolia and China, right? Southeast Asia, for example, basically doesn't have anything like that. I'm not sure how it is for Oceania and the rest of the sub-regions, but Southeast, like in Singapore specifically, there's just no incentive to play.
Of course.
Yeah, so it's kind of a grassroots thing. I know there are players. There are players who have personally like contacted me, Singaporeans, 16, 17-year-olds. They're like, I really want to play Counter-Strike, but it's just not a viable, career path to go for.
Yeah.
So I'd rather go play the other shooter. Then I'm like, go ahead, do what you need to do because I understand that it's tough.
Yeah.
Not everybody is like fortunate enough like me to go pro. Uh, which is also a big reason why I'm doing what I'm trying to do right now, because too many people have come to me and say like, I love Counter-Strike, I bloody want to do it
Mm-hmm.
with my entire heart, but my heart is not enough. I need to eat.
Yeah, it's
And
very
this
true.
is
Yeah.
yeah, this is very very normal thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very proud of players for actually making the choice, even as much as they love Counter-Strike. It personally is taking me a long time to think whether or not I want to give up on Counter-Strike as a player. I mean,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
which is why I want to do as much as I can right now since I'm free. To try and build something
Mm-hmm.
that everybody can look forward to.
Of course.
Be it as a amateur player, a semi-pro player that wants to go pro, a pro player that eventually maybe wants to go into coaching,
Mm-hmm.
or management, anything like that. So long as it helps improve Counter Strike in Asia, I'm trying to get my hands on it, trying to be involved.
Love to hear it. Love to hear it. And speaking of kind of, the players in a sense, we've already spoken about structural changes we'd make to the kind of tournaments, changes we make towards the scene in terms of ping and stuff like that. But in terms of a mentality speaking, is there changes you'd want to see kind of for the players themselves? I know, like, for example, in the UK, generally, players are seen as quite egotistical and toxic. Is there anything like that in Asia that people might not know about?
So you know about Dota in
Mm.
Asia? You know in Southeast Asia,
I know a
like Dota
bit.
is famous,
Yeah, yeah.
okay, for the worst pub games ever.
Yeah.
Uh, in Counter Strike,
Mhm.
I believe it's better, but I
Sure.
have seen some crazy things.
Mhm.
But I just think like what people don't understand is that Asian Counter Strike, it's like if you actually go enter a park in Asia, right?
Mhm.
I think even Blair will agree with me on this, cause he tweeted about this the other day.
Right.
A Danish 5 stack has nothing on a Thai solo face pugger. He would just come out and then one tap you. One come out and then one tap you, and come out and then
Right.
one tap you, and then eventually sometimes I have to go and look at the profile of the guy. I'm like, who the fuck is this? And on my streams, you constantly hear me complaining. This guy's having the game of his life.
Yeah,
This
yeah,
guy,
yeah.
this guy will never play like this ever again.
Uh-huh.
And then that's it. He continues to do it for the next couple of games, and I'm actually like mind blown. Like, who is this guy, right? So this is something that people don't know about.
Sure.
Asians mechanically are very very good.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
we are Asians. We work really hard.
Mhm.
Okay, if you think you're good at something, there's an Asian out there that's better than you already.
It's the classic saying.
Better than you already.
Yeah,
Yeah, the
yeah.
classic one. Yeah. So it's true. It's true in Counter
Mhm.
Strike as well. It's just that there's no platform.
Of course.
There's no place for us to showcase our ability, our
Mhm.
skill. Uh, and that is a big issue. That is
Mhm.
something that eventually I hope the entire region will be willing to work with me to change.
Love to hear it. Love to hear it. And of course, for yourself individually, from Singapore, it's one of the kind of less represented regions. From what my research shows me, there is 12 players who have ever been considered pro from the region, and of course, you're probably the most notable of them. How does it sort of feel to essentially be the top of your scene and the top of your nation? I guess kind of the role model for other people from Singapore.
I think I would not consider myself the top.
Okay.
Honestly, there are players that are better than me
Mm-hmm.
in Counter Strike, but they have also moved on to another game.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I would say, if anything, I'm the most vocal one.
Sure. Sure.
I'm the most Singaporean one because I like to complain a lot. Yeah. So
For sure.
yeah. So this is I would say this is the reason why people know about me. I'm just more vocal.
Mm-hmm.
But there are better players than me,
Sure.
and I would say in the sense that I don't want to I don't want to be like a representation of Singapore,
Okay.
but rather of Asia as a whole, because the language barrier in Asia is so big that there are many players who wants to complain but they don't know how to, they don't know who to reach out to.
Yeah.
And if I'm able to help them be that platform to get feedback to improve the region as a whole, I'll be very happy to do that. It, of course, including for Singapore as well.
Mm-hmm. Another thing, kind of completely away from this topic, but we've seen sort of a number of teams do boot camps within Europe, and we talk about kind of Wings Up Tyloo most recently, kind of doing exactly the same thing. Lim Vision even for a while, we all remember when they got an ace against G2, and classic notable times for young Starry there. But you know, how much of a difference does that actually make kind of for you guys being able to come across into towards Europe, and how does it sort of, you know, elevate the scene?
Um, I think for teams to actually be able to boot camp in Europe is like a huge learning experience for them.
Mm-hmm.
It also boosts their confidence a lot. Like LVG came back and they were actually like really really solid. But
Yeah.
previously I felt like even though they already have like really good players, uh, it felt like sometimes they lack confidence.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. So this helps players individually grow.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the biggest things. Another thing is that teams, if they go over to the EU and bootcamp and everything, and they bring back the experience and they actually like show the experience in practice,
Mm-hmm.
to other teams, then that helps the scene in general.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, because you see new things, right? One big problem of Asia is that they are very very good teams, very very good players,
Mm-hmm.
but it is a handful of them, and you
Right.
constantly scream against the same players, the same teams.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of what's happening actually in Australia right now, where it's four teams screaming each other all the
All the
time.
time, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so there is no like room for improvement. Not
Mm-hmm.
because that these players, not that these players are not working hard. It's just that
It's very limited, sort of thing.
yeah, it's very
Yeah,
limited. Sometimes enough is enough to beat your best opponent
of
in your
course.
region.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah, and
Vertex
then
recently, right? They took on Greyhound for the sort of the first time ever, more or less, and it's kind of, you know, more or less probably because they played them so many times in scrims.
yeah, exactly. You get habits, everything. Like, you could put me up against like the top four teams in Asia, and I know like my mirror matchup, what are his
Yes.
habits, what
Mm-hmm.
I can read on, and I win or lose, sometimes lose rounds because of that. So it's great that players go to the EU and come back, and then just like kind of freshen up the
Yeah,
competitive
yeah.
scene a little bit. Yeah.
Love to hear. And sort of kind of on the other side, and on sort of a darker note, I guess. Kind of how much of an effect has Valorant had on the scene? 'Cause obviously, you know, in terms of in Asia as a whole, I mean, it's been taking the kind of the scene by storm, and we've seen some of the best teams come out from Asia. I mean, how much has that had an effect on, I guess, like CS:GO and the competitive nature in the scene?
Um, I think okay. So I think the biggest thing about Valorant, it was that they actually like provided a huge platform
Yeah.
for players to prove that they are capable of playing at an international level.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Valorant doesn't have as saturated as a tournament schedule
Mm-hmm.
as compared to Counter-Strike, because Riot hosts like all their tournaments.
For sure.
The publisher does it. Whereas in CS:GO, you actually have so many different tournament
Yes.
organizers, hosting different tournaments, and there's so much for pro teams to play. Like
Mm-hmm.
for example, in the EU, that Asia just kind of feels like they can never catch up.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas this is not true for Valorant. Because there is that platform,
Mm-hmm.
teams from Asia that are actually really, really good, they get to compete against the other regions all at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So teams are improving all at the same time. And also, I believe in Valorant there is a skill ceiling as compared to Counter Strike. So
Okay, sure.
once you hit the skill ceiling, everyone is around at the same level.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I think Counter Strike is slightly different in that sense. Whereas I think there's no skill ceiling because there's players like Simple and Zaiwu
Of course.
that proves all skill ceilings like
Keep
the
going
sky's the limit.
high. Yeah,
They don't
yeah, yeah.
exist. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think these are the big things probably.
And have yourself, you know, what are your thoughts on Valorant? Like, have you given it a go? Is it a game that you enjoy at any means, or not at all?
I I do enjoy some parts of it.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but as a Counter Strike player, there's a lot of it that I still like. There are concepts that is kind of hard for me to grasp. Like
Of course. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, like when it's slow, it's super slow. When it's fast paced, it's so different compared to the type of fast pace that I'm used to.
Yeah.
Uh,
Fair enough.
I do think it's a good game.
Mhm.
But perhaps at the present moment, still not my cup of tea.
Okay. Fair enough. And
Yeah.
being sort of one of the vets of the scene, do you want to enlighten us on some talents that you think potentially could be kind of, you know, maybe the future of kind of representing Asian CS:GO, maybe at that top level? Is there any names that people should be looking out for?
Well, one of the things about Asian Counter Strike is that players constantly get recycled.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say like any player that you see in like a top team right now are
Mhm.
players that you should look out for, because all these players are good enough. All these players have been through enough that they will 100% smash you if you give them the opportunity to.
Sure, sure.
So yeah, the entirety of Asia, look out for them. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. And kind of on another note, kind of who do you think is the most underrated player that you personally have played with? Someone who doesn't really get the respect or kind of the notoriety that you think they actually deserve to.
Um, I think personally, Zine.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, he has a good reputation, but Zine has been very unlucky and very unfortunate in his career.
Hmm.
I believe he still has an additional, like, he has one more gear to shift into
Right.
that he
Okay.
hasn't achieved yet.
Sure.
And when that happens, you know, it's gonna be insane. So yeah, I still believe in it. I still think like
Hmm.
he's gonna go into like that extra level,
Okay.
and he can really do a lot of damage. Yeah.
Sure. And sort of on the other note, who do you think is kind of, in your opinion, the best player that you've ever, played with?
The best player I ever played with.
It's a tough question, that one, but yeah.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Yeah. I'll go as far as say there's too many players that are so good and
Okay.
on the same level that I enjoy playing with them.
Hmm.
I think they are amazing players, and I think they deserve every opportunity to prove that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Fair enough. And kind of in yourself, you've been sort of a free agent now for kind of a couple of months. You mentioned. I think if I'm right in saying you trialed with GG Hile, the that sort of international
Yeah.
team. But what should we expect next from you in terms of playing, or yourself? Are you at the moment happy to kind of sit back and kind of more do the sort of management side?
I'm actually kind of happy where I'm at right now.
Okay.
I've been just like analyzing offers. I've been just like taking them in and like seeing like what I should do. And honestly, I want to do something that I'm happy doing.
Hmm.
It doesn't have to be playing. It doesn't have to be managing or support stuff, or I mean, doesn't have to be anything. I want to
For sure.
do what I look at, and I think like I am willing to work hard for this.
Okay.
I'm the type of person who is okay. My wife calls me an alcoholic. A alcoholic, sorry, a workaholic. Oh, that was a bad slip. A workaholic. The moment I get into something, I really put
Yeah.
my 100% into it, and
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
200% into it, my
Hmm.
focus. So I want to put that in somewhere whereas it will, it will reward me for my efforts.
For sure.
So yeah, I'm just sitting back. I'm just laying still and just like, yeah, come for me, baby.
Love to
See what
hear
we
it.
can do.
Love to hear it. And of course, sort of the last question on CS:GO before we move on to sort of our other topics. If kind of CS:GO wasn't it wasn't you weren't able to kind of work professionally within CS:GO, whether it's kind of a player or a coach or anything like that, would you what would you do? What would kind of what do you think you'd kind of move in next to? Or what do you think you could do outside of CS:GO?
If you're talking about outside of CS:GO,
Mm-hmm.
I would try to stay in esports,
Sure.
do something management related.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, what I want to do is start in esports management. I
Okay.
also
Sure.
wanna study because my education level personally is not that high.
Okay.
I wanna do something related to esports in terms of management, and then eventually what I want to do is actually branch out to business management,
Sure.
and
Sure.
that can eventually like segue me into a traditional orthodox job.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think that's currently what I'm looking at.
Okay. Fair enough.
Kind of planned out, not exactly, but
Hey,
pretty
it
much.
sounds good. Sounds good. Well, we'll move on to sort of kind of your more sort of your personal life in a sense. So, what was life like growing up for you? How did you grow up? And how was it?
um, I came from a family that was not very financially stable.
Hmm.
Back when I first started playing Counter-Strike, I was playing like on a really bad PC.
Hmm.
I had I bought my first like 144 hertz monitor with prize money winnings of my own.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, so I had to really, like grab the opportunities by
Of
the collar,
course, yeah.
and I really had to go and go and get it for myself.
Hmm.
And so this was kind of where like I worked hard, and but eventually as I got more, I kind of got a bit complacent.
Hmm.
I got lazy, I got like demotivated, and then there was a phase of my like playing career where it's like, I just wasn't sure what I was doing. I thought like oh yeah, I'm pro now.
That's
what's
it.
next?
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Eventually it came to a point where it's like I found out that going pro was not what I actually wanted. What I really wanted was to win.
Of course. Yeah.
And that was when I kind of realized like, okay, to win you gotta do a lot. So like growing up, I would say I was pretty clueless. I also didn't have like money to spend to like get like a lot of experiences.
Sure.
Yeah, I went through like a very different path of life compared to a typical average Singaporean.
Okay. Fair enough.
And it has taught me a lot. And at this age, I would say that I would like quite proudly say that I am wiser than most. Uh, because of how much I've experienced, how much I've seen, how many people I've talked to,
Okay.
like from
Okay.
all over the world. So yeah, it's been nice.
It seems to be
It's
a
been great.
positive now as well. Like kind of those life experiences I've added to kind of your professional life in a sense.
Sorry, come again?
As in, like your sort of personal experiences and your life experiences seem to have added to kind of your professional life as well. You know, you're looking at kind of
Yeah.
making changes in the scene. You want kind of the more vocal point. So it seems to have kind of worked out for the best.
Yeah. I think it definitely did. It was like everything kind of just ties in together
Yeah,
to make me who I am today.
there we go.
And I'm a person that, you know, I'm proud of.
That's what we like to
I
hear.
think I've done well. So
Nice.
I will continue to do better. Yeah.
Love to hear it. And sort of outside of esports, kind of what do you like to get up to? Do you have any sort of hobbies or interests that don't involve kind of professional CS:GO by any means? Or is there anything that you like doing? Some people really into movies, some people into sports. Anything like that for you?
I'm really into tech.
Okay,
Like technology. I love
sure.
looking at peripherals. As a player, it also like kind of aligned with what I want to do. I want to use the best gear.
Of course.
I
Yeah,
want to
yeah.
use the best parts of the PC. And this was something that growing up I did not have as a privilege. Any parts, my PC, everything, I kind of like I secured funding of my own to go and build,
Yeah.
to go and purchase, to go and So growing up, sometimes I had to get like one PC part at a time, slowly upgrade it like over the year.
For sure.
So I really got into technology. I learned a lot about it. So
Okay.
I would say like technology for me is like one of my biggest interests.
Nice.
Anything like even you see the TV hanging in the back. It's like I before I purchased it, I made sure like it was a you know
Checking
smart TV.
everything.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
pretty handy as well. Like in terms of technical stuff, it's just something that you know being in esports has taught me.
Yeah, yeah, for
You
sure.
you have to be handy.
Of course.
Be smart, work smart. Street smarts, I think, is quite
Exactly.
important. Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. And kind of on the other side, sort of, what does a daily routine look like for you? Especially at the moment, of course, kind of being a free agent. I guess you have a slightly more free time in terms of you don't have practice as much. But kind of, what does a daily routine look like for you at the moment?
Um. So right now, my day to day is pretty simple. Because I'm also doing like this community management thing.
Of course.
Hours are pretty flexible. So most of the time I spend on like I try and do some self improvement in terms of like
Oh yeah.
picking up. I try and pick up more knowledge of the world.
Nice.
And for me personally, I try and learn more about like how businesses work, how community management works, how interacting with people works outside of a team. Because I always worked on a very small scale. It's a coach, 5 players, maybe a manager.
For sure.
Now I'm kind of starting to look at uh, like for example, what a general manager does.
Yes. Okay. Sure.
Yeah, so working at higher levels and so on, self improvement, trying to do some like side side tasks for some income as well. Yeah, plenty of things I think.
Nice. Okay. Well, the last sort of question on this topic, and you sort of already slightly mentioned it, but was it ever a tough conversation for you to kind of have with your parents and saying, okay, I want to go pro, I want to, be one of the players from Singapore. I want to go pro. I want to make this my full time job. I want to play CS:GO professionally. Was that ever a tough conversation?
Uh, with my dad, yes.
Sure.
Because he didn't agree with it, didn't understand what it was.
Yep.
My mom was always supportive. I'm super grateful for that.
Mm-hmm.
Even to today, no matter what I decide to do, she's like, "Yeah, go for it. You're gonna kill it."
For sure.
So it was kind of hard with my dad. But eventually, as I started winning a little bit more, he saw me
Yes.
bringing home like prizes. At first, it was like a mouse, and then suddenly I have money to. I suddenly buy food home, and then like it's like, hey, where do you get money to buy such good food?
Right.
And then he was
Yeah.
like, and then eventually he started listening, and then from then on it was actually kind of okay. But my dad has always advised me, like, say, your playing career can't be forever.
Of
I've
course.
always agreed. And, you know, like, realistically, it is not feasible to be playing past a certain age and whatnot.
Hmm.
So eventually my dad understood, and then, you know, we have conversations man to man, you know.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
At first it was like boy to dad. Eventually it became
Yeah,
man to man thing. So
yeah.
so yeah, it was okay.
Do you think sort of the financial side in terms of your winnings and even like bringing home gear, which obviously worth quite a bit? Do you think that really kind of helped cement it that this is actually definitely feasible?
Yeah. So when I got my first like semi-pro contract,
Hmm.
and I was getting paid to do it, he was like, "Oh, it's not bad. You're actually getting paid now."
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I told you, and he was like, "Yeah, you did tell me," and it kind of just ended there. So yeah, it
Fair
helped it,
enough.
I think,
Fair
definitely.
enough. Well, we'll move on to sort of the questions from Twitter and Reddit. And there's a couple to get through, but they're pretty decent. I think the first one is quite an interesting one that I wanted to kind of ask your opinion on, as you know it definitely a lot better than myself. But we heard as of kind of the midway through this year about the internet ban going through within China, for example. You're only allowed to play a certain amount a day, or below a certain age, you couldn't play and whatnot. Do you think that's made
Yeah.
any effect by any means? I mean, even if you look at some of those youngsters who are coming through, for example, Starry, one of those youngsters is a great example. Or even in Valorant, there's obviously quite a lot of quote unquote prodigies. Has that had an effect at all? That you know?
Mm, I think with like so-called bans and
Mm-hmm.
sanctions like this, like there's always some wave of people to get past it.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah, so if people are interested enough, they will find a way. And you know, in terms of actually how legal or illegal it is,
Mm-hmm.
I can't say for sure.
For sure.
But if you love something, you do everything
Exactly.
to actually go ahead and do it.
Exactly.
So I believe, like, Starry, as far as I know, is still playing.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think he has been like huge factor for him.
Okay.
Um, but I believe there's a lot of like misinformation when it comes to sanctions and
Yes.
all
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
like all these like weird rules and
Mm-hmm.
everything from like different countries. I don't know, not much to say about it, to be
Yeah.
honest. I just hope like stuff like this don't happen.
Yeah.
And eventually countries will grow out of.
Of course. There we go. That's what we want. And another question, which is pretty interesting, and of course, you've slightly mentioned it, but we can kind of go into more details. But it's about coaching, right? You yourself, as an IGL, making that transition to coach is arguably the easiest of transitions from any other player. Do you see kind of a world in which, maybe soon you ever become a coach?
Um, I would say I would say that it is very possible,
Hmm.
but it also have to depend on the type of team that I'm working with.
Sure.
Uh, yeah, because all this like expertise, all this knowledge, it's not something that you can just give away and people accept the like
Yes, that's
straight
it.
away.
Hmm.
Uh, for example, like a long time ago, there was the Indian team, Wolf.
Yeah.
They went to DreamHack like the first major,
Hmm.
and Kasad was their coach,
Hmm.
right? Kasad, okay,
Yeah.
like D Kasad was their coach. And then these players were like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. This was a long time ago,
Yeah.
right? I don't fault those players,
Hmm.
but it's been a long time since then, yeah. But it it is also something that still holds. First you have to work with the right team to be a coach.
Of
Your
course.
system might not work for those individual players,
Mhm.
and to go into a team and having to remove many players and call and whatever might not be necessarily be the best thing.
Hmm. For sure, that makes sense. And another one is interesting is kind of what for you is your warm up routine. I know a lot of people have different ones. I know even Zywu doesn't warm up; he just plays the pug. Kind of for you, what is your warm up routine?
So I don't necessarily have a warm up per se, but I do have a daily routine.
Okay.
Yeah, so I just do basically like 2,400 aimbot,
Okay, sure.
and then 200 deathmatch frags,
Hmm.
with at least a 2 KDR.
Okay,
So
for
if I
sure.
have 200 kills, I cannot have less. I must have less than 100 deaths.
Sure. That makes a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah,
sense.
yeah. So yeah, like the routine itself is actually quite it's quite like I wouldn't say it's strenuous. It takes like 45 minutes,
Okay.
and it's something that I do every day to make sure I'm on point and
You
and
still
have
got
good
it.
aim.
That's what I love to
Yep,
hear.
yep.
Love to hear. Good. Another one, quite interesting one. I'm sure you've probably got some pretty good examples that I might not even heard of. What is your sort of favorite food or snack?
Oh man, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
Favorite food or snack?
Yeah, you can anything. Like what is your like if you can if you got one thing you could eat, You know, let's say it's your last day on Earth. One thing to eat. What would be your one thing that you'd be like, this is like my favorite thing?
Oh man. Okay. There is a there is a Singaporean dish
Sure.
called Hokkien Mee. Okay.
Right.
Hokkien is my dialect. I am Hokkien.
Okay.
It's like a sub ethnicity. I'm not
Okay.
sure. It's a dialect, right?
Sure.
It's a yeah. You know, Chinese is Mandarin and a lot of like Cantonese, whatever. A
Yes.
lot of
Yeah.
different languages, right?
Hmm.
Yeah. And mine is Hokkien.
Okay.
So mee is noodles. So
Hmm.
Hokkien mee is a type of noodle that is prepared like in a Hokkien
Right.
style. Yeah,
Okay.
and it's super delicious.
Hmm.
It's I think personally one of my favorite foods. And you know, if it's the last thing, if it's my last day on earth, I would ask
That's what
for
happened.
the most delicious plate of Hokkien mee, and I will enjoy it like to the fullest. Yes.
And is that sort of something you grew up with? Like, you know, your parents would make at home, so it's kind of been a dish you've always had, kind of grown up.
Oh wait, sorry, come again?
Is that sort of a dish that you've always had growing up? You know, like, you know, your parents would make
Uh,
or
uh,
something.
yeah. I think so. I remember my mom making it once, and it was so good. My grandma as well made it once.
Fair
And you
enough.
know, in Singapore, there's a lot of street food, hawker food.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, there's some great ones that does like amazing Hokkien mee. So, yeah.
Okay, fair enough. So, also another one. Someone asked, "What's your take on the state of Singaporean esports specifically?"
I think Singaporean esports is at an infancy stage.
Sure.
It's slowly starting to gain traction.
Hmm.
Especially with PaperX and Bleed
Yes.
doing so well.
Hmm.
Um, so hopefully, like I think I unfortunately missed the timing to
Hmm.
be like I'm a couple of years early, to
Yes.
be like the face of Singaporean esports or
Hmm.
anything like that. But I like to consider myself somewhat of a pioneer
Hmm.
in terms of there are players before me that has done much more than me, but
Sure.
I feel like I'm at a perfect age to kind of guide the grassroots level into a pro level.
Okay.
So hopefully I'll be able to do that for Singapore in the future.
Fair enough. And another one someone asked is kind of what's your initial impressions that NKT gave to you? Because also it seemed like sort of your, a sense sort of kind of baby project. Someone was saying, and you know what happened and how come it sort of fizzled out on your end.
For NKT, I think after NG dissolved,
Hmm.
we stuck together and we were like, okay, you know, we have the players, we don't have the resources yet,
Yes.
but we are competing at a high level, so let's stick together and see what
Hmm.
happens. Um, so NKT is at this point of time, I still am not sure whether or not they are actually funded.
Right. Okay. Sure.
If there's actually money, or it's just like people
Just
like
playing kind of thing.
like people like actually like finding money somehow or other to just like chuck at the team.
Yes.
Um, so for me, I just kind of like it's a little bit complicated right now. Between myself and NKT,
Hmm.
but I would say that I had a good time there. It was fun,
That's what we like to hear.
and for me personally, it was like a great experience.
Hmm.
And you know, for the players, I hope the best for them.
Hmm.
And you know, for the staff, you know, like the coach, like MYM, I'm really close with, and you know,
Hmm.
I really wish that they achieve a lot more, in the future. But
Awesome.
my time in NKT, you know, it was great for me personally. It was like a good experience.
Hmm.
Just right now, I'm just kind of sorting out some like stuff with the company itself and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Fair enough. Fair enough. And so, Conky asks, why? What do you love most about Pilski?
Oh man, when you look at Piłski, there's nothing to not love, right? When it comes to you know the down under,
Yeah.
when I look at all the talent there, all the players there, how
Hmm.
amazing they've been.
Yeah.
Like to me, like you know, in all my past experiences,
Hmm.
I cannot help but love them. They're a great bunch. A bunch of
Agreed.
cunts they are, but you know, a bunch of great cunts.
Spot on. Best way to put it. Best way to put it. So someone
Yep, yep.
asked as well, what does the logistics look like trying to coordinate kind of with APAC teams and kind of what are you aiming for in terms of creating a cohesive scene? So essentially, how does it work in terms of I guess getting kind of multi kind of nationality teams from Asia? How does that kind of work? Obviously, you know, ping's a very big conversation that people talk about. It makes competitions very difficult. You yourself had that thought. or and kind of how does that work? What does the logistics look like?
Um, I would say if you're playing from home,
Mm-hmm.
there's really not that much logistics to really talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Those logistics kick in when you want to get the team to a boot camp.
Yes.
So everybody's flying in from like different places, like landing at different hours and
For
whatnot.
sure.
A little bit annoying. But actually, when it comes to playing like online a multinational team in Asia, I think it's not that big of an issue or a deal. You just gotta get used to the accent of another country's English, like spoken English,
Right. Okay.
right?
Fair enough.
And I would say that a lot of it boils down to how hard you work as a team
Mm-hmm.
to overcome these issues. So logistically speaking, it's not that hard,
Okay.
honestly. Yeah, it only kicks in when you want to get them somewhere like together,
Yeah.
and that's a little bit annoying. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. And we'll get sort of to the latter part of the questions, but this one kind of I really liked. This one's from Reddit. So someone was asking about kind of when you play against Chinese predominantly teams, right? Stylistically, how different is teams like, for example, Tai Lu to the likes of kind of, I guess, like Rare Atom or the old Vici side? How different are they?
If we were to compare directly Tyloo and Rare Atom, right? I would say that Tyloo rely a lot more on defaults and individual players.
Sure.
Whereas Rare Atom goes with a game plan in almost everything, even in scrims.
Okay. Sure.
Yeah. So it, Rare Atom is kind of easy to read.
Right. Okay.
Tyloo is a little bit harder. But Rare Atom is easy to deal with if they have not like re-innovated themselves on a particular map. Like on Inferno, for example, if they throw the top of Banana Smoke as T, they're almost always going to do a waterfall out of apps.
Apps.
Yeah, so there are things that Rare Atom has a very good game plan, has very good strategy and tactics, and it's a lot more easy to figure out.
Okay. Fair enough.
Whereas Tyloo could be danking coming at you, going absolutely nuts.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's the thing about defaulting, right? It's kind of hard to read, but there are always key things to look out for. And I would say like the major differences is how these two teams approach the game. It's just
Right.
one is very one style is very like so-called structured. In the sense where it's like they're defaulting a lot and then they're like doing a lot of things to kind of throw you off and then come at you like to finish the round. And then the other team, which is Rare Atom, would be like super tactic based. They have game plan. They're gonna run the same 5 rounds. You're just gonna defend it. You gotta figure out how to do it. So, one requires more teamwork to defend. The other requires more individual work to defend because you're gonna find like these small little key things of what they're doing to figure out what's happening and where they're coming from and whatnot.
For sure. And for Tyloo, do you think that kind of is like a bit of a European influence coming through? Because of course, they got Letney coaching. Bentep played in Europe under Extremer for a long time as well, and I guess he even played in NA. So do you think kind of that's that international kind of experience of kind of predominantly those two that is sort of leaking into kind of the strategies behind Tyloo?
I do think so, but at the same time, I feel like Tyloo doesn't play. Even though Tyloo like kind of plays a lot of defaults, I feel like they don't play it well enough.
Okay.
So I believe there is a mix and also a conflict
Sure.
of how they should actually approach it.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think defaulting is the very basics of the game. The fact that Tyloo is trying to do it is like fantastic, but I also think they are not on the same page when doing it.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, so I think that's the issue that Tyloo is facing right now. And hopefully they will fix it so that they look better as individuals and as a team, because right now there are moments where they look like absolutely like out of it. You don't know what they're doing on the server, and
For sure.
those moments are really quite discouraging to see.
Yeah, for sure. So moving on to kind of our second to last question, another pretty good one from Reddit. So someone asked, since you played of Excurate for a bit and you kind of one of the players who was making a sort of a bigger name for himself, do you kind of have any insight to sort of why he sort of was dropping off, why a lack of consistency?
I would say that Kevin, he's the type of person that works hard when the environment is good.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, and from what I, at least personally from what I've experienced, there are moments in time in his career where it's like the team environment and whatnot is not fantastic.
Right.
Yeah. So for example, I've won LAN tournaments with him. We've
Mhm.
won against like we won on the regional level as well as like even against international opponents.
Of course. Yeah.
And when he's motivated, when when he gets the groove, gets into the groove,
Mhm.
he is a really amazing player.
Nice.
And consistent as well. So it could be a mix of him not finding the right motivations,
Mhm.
but I also believe that the environment for him, you know, throughout his career at some times were really very sketchy and really hard for him to focus
Okay. Fair
to
enough.
play to focus on the game on like during those times, yeah.
Fair enough. Well, moving on to our very last question. Someone on Twitter asked, when are you going to stream again? They want to see you stream.
I'm super chill right now. The reason why I'm not streaming is because uh streaming for me
Mm.
is something that I enjoy to do when I know what's next.
Okay, sure, sure.
Yeah, so I can drop a little tidbit of information here and there everywhere,
Yes,
and then
yeah.
people are like, oh yeah, I'm excited for you.
Okay, yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah, but right now I'm at a point in my life where I'm thinking so much about what I want to do next
Mm-hmm.
that it's all been mix of like it's a mixed bag of emotions. Like
That's
I
fair enough.
I looked at my career,
Mm-hmm.
I've smiled, I've cried,
Mm-hmm.
I've laughed, I've been mad. There's
Yeah.
so much that I have to process right now. That's why I'm not streaming yet.
Okay, that's absolutely fair enough.
However, a stream might be coming up very soon.
Okay.
Because I I believe I have big announcements next week.
Ooh.
I mean next week of whatever recording today.
Yes, yeah. Well,
So
it's the 21st as a recording date for those who are
yeah.
wondering.
So yeah, might be big things coming. When those big things come, I will capitalize on the impressions, on the farming. I will get my
That's
stream
it.
with 100 over viewers the moment I started after like
That's it.
years.
That's it.
Yeah. So yeah, it might happen really soon.
Do you have any leaks for us here? Any small bits?
Oh no, the tidbits have to come later, man. I
Okay.
first have to confirm it.
Okay, yeah, that's very true. That's very true. Well, mate, that is us done. I mean, I'll open up the floor for you here. If there's any kind of shout outs or anything. Obviously, your Twitter is already it's below your head, in fact. But obviously, your links are below. So, but anything you want to shout out, you're more than welcome to. This is the stage is yours.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me.
Of course, of
It's my
course.
absolute pleasure to be here. It was a really fun chat.
Yeah.
Hopefully help you and other people who are gonna be watching this
Mhm.
understand a little bit more about Asia as a
For sure.
whole. A little bit more about myself, although honestly I might not be that interesting. uh, but yeah, I'm thankful for everyone who's watching, who has
Mhm.
watched to this point. For me personally, esports is something that I'm very very passionate about. I wish to at this point of time do
Mhm.
more for the community, for the region, and hope
Of
that
course.
even if you might not like me, you might
Mhm.
not want to support me, support the region, help
Of
them out.
course.
Because there are great players here, great teams here, great people involved in esports in Asia.
Mhm.
Uh, so yeah, thankful for all the fans, friends, family for supporting me
Mhm.
all this time. Uh, and I hope you continue to support me regardless of what I decide to do, be it as a player, coach, manager.
Mhm.
Even if I decide to work at the gas station, if you see me, say hi. So yeah, thankful to everyone that
Mhm.
has been in my life, and that interact with me, on any type of level.
That's it. Well, thank you very much for joining me, Impression. It's been a pleasure. I mean, it's been definitely eye opening for me, but I'm sure it has been for everyone else too. So, brother, thank you very much for joining me. Thank you, of course, as you mentioned, to everyone at home for watching. I do appreciate it. All the links are below. Go and check out all of Impression stuff. The Twitter, the Twitch as well. I mean, there'll be some spicy stuff there recently, so check it out. But thank you for joining, everyone, and until next time, goodbye.